Welcome to NBAF Reimagined, where every week we bring you some of the most compelling movers and shakers within Atlanta's art scene. Thank you for tuning in to NBAF Reimagined.
Okay, well, my name is George Galbreath. I am an art educator and practicing artist, as well as got a background in graphic design. And currently, me and my wife, Esohe, collect art. We support artists, and I'm one of her most demanding clients.
My name is Esohe Galbreath, blessed to be married to George Galbreath, the artist. And so about 4 years ago, I left my full-time corporate job to really support artists in the ways that I love doing certain things, but artists don't necessarily appreciate chopping or checking those same boxes. So I help with taxes, budgeting, financial planning, some curation, more so around the execution of it all. My background is engineering and logistics, and so that's what hopefully I bring. But I consider myself an art enthusiast, collector, an advocate.
I think when I left DC, went to Howard University, going back to Missouri was a little disappointing. I definitely wanted to get to Atlanta because it was that perfect mix of country and city, that metropolitan mixed in. And it was interesting because the arts didn't really bring me here so much. I had a lot of former classmates that settled down here, and you heard about the Renaissance going on, and I was surprised it was still going on when I first got here in 2005 or 2006.
Yeah, being from Lexington, Kentucky, I was born and raised, lived my entire life there, went to University of Kentucky. I had a job at a construction and engineering firm after graduation, and I decided that that's not where I wanted to stay. My sister was at Tech, and I said, when you go back to school in August, I'm going back with you. And I came down with a little bit of money and shared that twin-size bed in her dorm room for a few months, and I've been here ever since and just fell in love with it. But I wanted to be around more Black people, and I thought the opportunity was right in Atlanta, and I felt like if I couldn't make it here, I couldn't make it anywhere. So I could always go back home.
Yeah, like actually being so young and being able to buy a house that was the price of a really expensive car, it actually gave a lot of us that came around that time an opportunity to set up shop. It did, to the detriment of a lot of folks, unfortunately. I actually love, we often talk about the ecosystem within Atlanta, within the creative industry. And one thing I love about it is that as an artist, you can choose to go the gallery route and try to get in that rat race, or you can just literally support other artists. They support you. Creatives in the Atlanta area will come to your exhibits. They may not purchase at the rates that a gallery is going to sell at, but they most certainly are feeding each other. I just feel like folks here are real supportive and willing to grind together to actually make folks' career worthwhile without necessarily going the gallery route a lot of times. I appreciate that.
And at least initially. So I think when I think about it, there are all sorts of avenues for us to do what we're doing, right? We've purchased from galleries, we've purchased directly from artists, we've purchased from group exhibits. It's not like any one way has to be the right way. The kind of ecosystem that you speak to, like, I really agree with it, but I also think that it's quite helpful because you have these younger emerging artists who are able to sell work, validate themselves, work as full-time artists before the galleries catch hold. And that's fine and that's great. And it also presents a great opportunity for us as emerging collectors, right? So you're not in the gallery, your work's not being doubled, tripled in prices yet. And so long as we're a part of that ecosystem and conversation, we hope to continue. You get your work out there. We hope that your work ends up in the gallery. We hope that we can support you there as well. But we're also willing to support before you get that validation from the gallery, because we know what we like, we know what we appreciate, and we appreciate having artists be able to continue to push our narratives and tell our stories. So we're not waiting for the gallery to say this is good. We recognize it, we love it, we appreciate what you're doing, and we want to support you in this way.
And I can't stand selling, but Esohe sells my work, and we're not selling through galleries currently. So, like, somebody will not purchase them unpainted edges or unframed, So yeah, absolutely. Like making sure that the quality of the work, is up to par as well.
That you're just presenting yourself in the best light possible. So in the same way that if you had on a really nice suit, you wouldn't necessarily want to present yourself without a belt, right? Like you just want it to be complete. So we hope that when we purchase your work, there's hanging equipment on the back and the edges are painted. We are looking for those things, but I don't know that it would completely keep me from the purchase. But even, when we're producing our own group exhibits and things of that sort, we are looking for the craftsmanship, but we're looking for the consistency in work. So if you've shown that same piece around the city 6-7 times and it's 3 years old, as great as it may be, you need to keep working and keep producing so that folks have something new to consume and purchase. This is one of my frustration points, but there was a lot of publicity around the mayor of Atlanta increasing the arts funding budget, like doubling it. That's great. Unfortunately, it was only $1 million to begin with. So if we look at a city like Charlotte, where their annual arts funding budget is $14 million, going on $15 million, and we're talking about the city of Atlanta, $2 million, I can't see how artistry is not our greatest export, our creativity, our culture. So why is there such a small investment from a city perspective? Then you look at it from a state perspective, and we're 50th in terms of percentage of GDP, like in terms of what we're doing to go back and put back into the artists and their artistry. So there's not necessarily a whole lot of money there to support the artists. And until we really offer up some level of monetary support, I think the artists will continue to suffer, right? So it's the emerging artist that's not getting the support they need in all of those avenues that you talk about. So there's grants funding, and while it's appreciated, it's a whole lot smaller than what it should be. If we want the artists to continue to do the things that they're doing, the city has to get behind it in a meaningful way. And I don't mean to scoff at a couple $1 million, but when you look at what other cities are doing across the country, it's amazing that Atlanta is able to do as much as they're able to do with as little as they actually invest.
Yeah, and we often talk about how cities create their own narrative, and Atlanta's history has been creative. We know that there was this political element with the civil rights movement and whatnot, but plain and simple, Atlanta is a creative space. It makes no sense that you shouldn't be able to hire on a ridiculous amount of artists to do the work that needs to be done in this city, because they're going to do it anyway, and they're still pushing this narrative, but they're not getting the support. We're not getting the support to do it. Yeah.
So 2013 was the first year of Articulate ATL, and what we really were looking to do when we started was to provide a clean space for emerging artists to show their work. So these same artists that we love and appreciate their work, but they didn't necessarily find the spaces to show. And so again, because it takes several lanes to make things happen, not disparaging the cafe work, not disparaging some of the other opportunities where the party might be the focus and the art is in the background, the work is still being seen, but how do we put the art and the artistry at the forefront of this art party for these emerging artists? Year one, I think we had about 20 artists, had about 350 people come out, and the artists sold a little bit of work. Year two, we said, you know what? Let's push this narrative. Like, we want you to come out and have a good time. We want you to buy this art. And year two, I think the artist sold about $16,000 worth of work. And we said, okay, we think we're getting it. We're moving the needle, because not only are we supporting the artists and providing them an avenue and a venue, but we're supporting the emerging collectors like ourselves, right? So I want to go somewhere. I want to be able to buy art. I may not be able to drop a few $1,000s, but I got a few $100s, I got $700, I got $800. What's that sweet spot for somebody like us? So really, with our partners, Brandon Ball and Courtney Ware, we were looking to create that space for somebody like us. What would be a good time for us? What would be the artwork we'd want to see? Who would be the artist we'd want to support? What would we want to talk? Like, we want you to talk about your work. That's why it's called Articulate. Like, we want you there. We want you to be able to explain. We want you to be present. But we also want everybody to come in and have a good time. This past year, year 7, the artist sold about $35,000 worth of work. It's a good night for them. They keep 100% of what they sell. And then we also have a nonprofit component, and that's for youth artist programming. So we noticed that within the school system, the youth weren't necessarily receiving the same breadth and depth of education from an art perspective that some of the peers north of 20 were receiving. And so we wanted to provide that opportunity. This past year, we raised $7,000 for the program. For the first time, we're taking them outside of the city of Atlanta to see something else. But it's not even necessarily about that financial component, it's just about the exposure. So how do we make sure that we're strengthening the pipeline for that next wave of artists to come through as well?
Yeah, and those emerging artists, they're in a position with Articulate to have like a real professional presentation of their work. Some of them have done that for themselves also, but at Articulate, it's almost like they're gearing up for this, almost like an award show, because they know that they're going to go out there and they're going to sell a lot of work. And in one night, I mean, it's just fast and there's a lot of high energy. And yeah, I think that's why people appreciate it, because I know folks that have gone literally like 5 of the 7 years, and they talk about how they bought their first piece of art at Articulate, but then you see them year 5 and their walls are starting to fill up. And yeah, I think it just supports the culture, gives them something that probably needs to be there, because I know I used to go to the National Black Arts Festival and that's where I buy my artwork, and I think folks are missing that.